Hey guys, this is Morgan, and in this video, I'll be showing you the best replacement for test tube setups in the ant keeping hobby. Test tube setups have been recommended by experienced ant keepers for years. However, I strongly believe that there are many flaws in using test tube setups to keep small ant colonies. I strongly believe that plastic containers such as these are much more suitable. This is a simple plastic container that is normally used to store sauces for takeaways with a wet cotton inside it. Here's why I believe that plastic containers are much better than test tube setups. Firstly, the main reason why I believe containers are better than test tubes is the fact that you can change the cotton while the colony is still living inside. A very common problem with test tubes is that the cotton gets moldy rather quickly, and it is very hard to change it. To change the cotton of a test tube setup, you have to first move the colony living inside it into a new test tube setup. This can be difficult as some species of ants are really stubborn when it comes to moving. They can take days to move into a new setup, which puts a severe amount of stress onto the colony. When using containers, you do not have to worry about this problem. When the cotton gets moldy, it is very easy to just take it out. Although it may cause some stress onto the ants, it is nothing compared to the stress of forcing the ants out of their homes. Secondly, containers are much easier to store as they do not waste space storing a large amount of water that is not necessary. People often recommend to fill 50% of the test tube with water. But have you ever noticed that whenever you use test tubes, the water gets moldy before it's even close to running out? Containers solve this problem as only a small amount of water will be inside the setup at any given time, and when it runs out, it is extremely easy to refill it. This ability to control how much water is inside the setup at a time also allows us to control how humid the setup is. Next, containers are much more stable than test tube setups. It is extremely easy to make sure that your container is placed upright, and it is impossible for it to roll around. However, test tube setups roll around very easily due to the shape of it. Some people have invented ways to stop them from rolling, such as teeth on the test tube or taping something onto the test tube. However, this is usually quite time consuming to make and even quite costly. Which brings us to the next point: cost. Containers are much cheaper than test tubes. One container only costs a few cents and can be used for a lifetime. It is much more durable than test tubes and much easier to clean. Some people might say that it is much harder to feed ants inside a container setup as the opening is larger compared to test tubes. However, you do not have to open up the container all the way. And if you do, chances are the ants are too timid to leave the container. Escaped ants usually will return to the container when they are given the chance to. The only true cons of the container setup is that it has a smaller capacity compared to test tubes, and it is harder to photograph the ants due to the translucent material. But with all the benefits considered, I still strongly believe that the container setup is the best option.